Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, August 24th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 317 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is a letter written and delivered yesterday to Attorney General Jeff Sessions criticizing him for impeding scientific research into the medicinal use of marijuana. I reported recently that the Drug Enforcement Administration blamed the Department of Justice, led by Attorney General Sessions, for shutting down every recently proposed scientific study on medical cannabis, and yesterday a bipartisan group of federal lawmakers wrote to Sessions asking that he stop hindering scientific progress. The letter to Sessions was written by Republican congressional representatives Matt Gaetz of Florida and Dana Rohrabacher of California, and Democratic representatives Jared Polis of Colorado and Earl Blumenauer of Oregon, and said in part, quote, "Over 80% of Americans think that doctor-prescribed marijuana should be legal, according to recent polls. It's worrisome to think that the Department of Justice, the cornerstone of American civil society, would limit new and potentially groundbreaking research simply because it does not want to follow a rule," unquote. Swing over to Tom's piece on MassRoots for the full text of the letter. In Massachusetts, Governor Charlie Baker has announced his first pick for his state's Cannabis Control Commission, the regulatory body that will oversee the combined medical and adult use marijuana systems, and activists in the state are not happy with who he picked. Rather than select someone with a solid understanding of cannabis issues and all their innumerable nuances, Governor Baker went with State Senator Jen Flanagan, a prohibitionist Democratic lawmaker who opposed last fall's adult use ballot initiative and who once said that legalizing marijuana would exacerbate the opioid crisis. Jim Borghesani, spokesperson for the campaign that successfully pushed through last fall's ballot initiative, said that Baker's pick was no different than his earlier nomination of police chief and prohibitionist John Carmichael to the advisory panel helping the Cannabis Control Commission work out good policy. Our final top story of the day is a long-form piece published over at Marijuana Business Daily that does a deep dive into the recent decline of Women Grow, the networking company that focuses on supporting women in the legal marijuana industry. In full disclosure on this one, I'm friends with Jane West and Jasmine Hupp, two of Women Grow's founders featured in Marijuana Business Daily's piece. Jane is also a regular on our weekly show Marijuana Today, and I was actually one of their speakers at their 2016 Leadership Summit in Denver. With that aside, you should swing over to John Schroyer's piece for the full read on this one. In short, Women Grow has seen some decline in recent years due to a number of overlapping circumstances that offer plenty of good lessons for entrepreneurs and industry players alike. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, MJ Today Media, who you know as the people who bring you all the legal marijuana news you need to know. Stay hooked up and connected with MJ Today Media by opening up mjtodaypodcast.com, mjtodaydaily.com, and mjtodaymedia.com, where you can sign up for our popular newsfeed email newsletter. If it's important marijuana news, you're going to hear or read it from us. Once again, just fire up mjtodaypodcast.com, mjtodaydaily.com, and mjtodaymedia.com. All right, time for the Blitz. New Cannabis Ventures is reporting that marijuana social network and publisher MassRoots just announced their acquisition of CannaRegs, an online platform that tracks nationwide cannabis legislation in near real time for $12 million in stock. CannaRegs was started in 2014 by Amanda Ostrowitz and reports that they are debt-free with more than $450,000 in already booked annual revenue. The Boston Globe has a great article up that looks at the dearth of diversity in the legal marijuana industry in terms of business ownership, with most dispensary, cultivation, and processing facility owners tending towards the whiter side of the demographic spectrum. The Globe's piece does a good job at looking at why that is, from good old-fashioned systemic racism to the ingrained opposition within the Black community to any kind of drug, as well as the challenges of getting started in an industry with so few role models and mentors of the same race. It's good to see my friend Shalene Title quoted in this story. Shalene's one of our regulars over at Marijuana Today and a tireless advocate for racial diversity within legal marijuana, who was one of the people responsible for helping to craft certain parts of Massachusetts cannabis law that actually pay attention to criminal justice issues. Click over and give this one a read and share it widely. We cannot allow legal marijuana to be all white. The Denverite jumps into an issue I've covered in the past in Colorado, with state lawmakers inadvertently writing out cannabis tax funding earlier this year for a number of state cultural and transportation institutions and organizations, including the Regional Transportation District and the Denver Zoo, Art Museum, and Botanical Gardens. The Denverite's piece looks at how that happened and, thankfully, reports that a legislative fix should be slapped down at the start of the state's next legislative session. Florida lawyer and activist John Morgan is adding 3 more plaintiffs to his lawsuit against his state for banning the smoking of medical marijuana. Mr. Morgan is perhaps best known most recently in the industry for teaming up with Roger Stone, a Republican strategist, Donald Trump ally, and white supremacist who is currently slated to give the keynote address at next month's Cannabis World Congress and Business Expo, but who is under fire for doing so. The lawsuit filed by Mr. Morgan against the state of Florida seeks to compel the state to allow medical patients to smoke their cannabis should they choose so. The 3 additional plaintiffs are all medical patients who live with cancer, PTSD, and Lou Gehrig's disease. We'll report back as that suit progresses. The Westword has an interesting article about the increasing speed at which members of the traditional media are jumping into marijuana media, with the latest being Peter Marcus, an experienced political journalist who just left behind his beat covering Colorado politics to take a job as communications director with marijuana dispensary chain Terrapin Care Station. It's a good story to click over and read. The Las Vegas Sun picks up on the story of how legal marijuana could threaten the alcohol industry. Their story references an earlier headline from last year that reported that booze sales in states with legal marijuana saw a greater decline in sales than those that maintained prohibition, and then looked at how that trend could affect Nevada. This is sure to be a big issue for our industry in the years to come. The New York State Department of Health published a new set of proposed regulations for their state's medical marijuana program that expands the modalities by which patients can consume medical cannabis, while also loosening up restrictions on medical marijuana facilities as to how they're able to advertise. Click over to New Cannabis Ventures for the full text of the proposed rules. And finally for today, we have a story about the aforementioned John Morgan and his new right-wing partner Roger Stone, who, as I mentioned, is under fire for taking the invited keynote speaker spot at next month's Cannabis World Congress and Business Expo in Los Angeles, California. As Politico is reporting, Mr. Morgan thinks the broiling boycott aimed at Mr. Stone's keynote address is misplaced, telling them via email, quote, "It's a mistake. Roger has the president's ear. Politics is not pretty. Sometimes politics makes strange bedfellows. This is such a time," unquote. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at MJTodayDaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, MJ Today Media, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today.
One take, Shay. One take.